Sir, I'm very glad that the honorable member referred to visits, timing of visits. Before Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to Nepal, for 17 years, there was no visit from India to Nepal. Does that mean that nobody in India cared for Nepal? For Sri Lanka, for 30 years, there were no bilateral visits before Prime Minister Modi went there. So visits are important. I accept it. Visits are also subject of timing, of convenience, of agenda. So the honorable member asked, we give them priority. Do they give us priority? And the answer is yes, that if one looks at what we do with each of these countries, he referred, sir, to Maldives. With Maldives, with this government in Maldives, we have inaugurated the Adu Link Road and Reclamation Project. I myself went for it. 28 islands there were provided water and sewage facilities. And by the way, the president of Maldives was present at the oath taking of this new government. So I think the idea, if there is a desire to somehow show the foreign policy of this government in a bad light for political purposes, that is the member's privilege. But then, it is not my nature to make foreign policy partisan. But I would like to remind the honorable member, sir, through you, that the very Maldives he's talking about was also the country from which Indian companies were driven out for an important project in 2012. The same Sri Lanka was the place where Hambantota port was built by the Chinese in 2008. The same Bangladesh was giving support to terrorism till 2014. The same Myanmar was hosting Indian insurgent groups. So if one looks today at the development projects require both sides to cooperate. If one looks today at the number of projects, the volume of trade, the exchanges which are taking place, I think the answer is very clear. Now, our neighbors also have their politics. There are ups and downs in their countries. It will have some implications for us. But it is important we are mature and we don't get into point scoring.
Honorable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, for my second supplementary, let me turn to our northern neighbors. In the January of 2023, there was a paper written by a senior IPS officer presented to the Conference of Director Generals and Inspector Generals of Police. In that paper, it was pointed out that 26 out of the 65 patrolling points from Karakoram Pass to Chumar were inaccessible to the Indian security forces as a consequence of Chinese transgressions. This fact was never officially controverted by the government at any level. Can the minister confirm to this House that after the recent disengagement, all those 26 patrolling points, which were ostensibly inaccessible, have become accessible? And number two, whether the current disengagement does it in any manner ipso facto validate the 1959 Chinese claim line?
Sir, what somebody wrote as a paper is for that somebody to answer for. I can answer for the government. Now, let me, sir, through you, remind the honorable member, I gave a very detailed statement on the disengagement and recent developments in the India-China border areas. In that statement, I highlighted that the last of the disengagement agreements had taken place which pertained to Depsang and Demchok. I also would like to convey to the honorable member, it was in the statement as well, that the understanding envisages that Indian security forces would be going to all the patrolling points in Depsang and would be going to the limit, eastward limit, which has historically been our patrolling limit in that part. we have also, the same statement made it clear that we have had some previous disengagement agreements. Those disengagement agreements also had certain provisions where both sides on a temporary basis had agreed to put certain restraints on themselves. So I think the position is very clear in that statement, and I would urge the honorable member to read that statement again.
Sri Naveen Jindal.
Thank you, Speaker, sir. Sir, I'd like to ask the Honorable Minister, through you, sir, that what steps is India taking to improve our relations with our neighbor Pakistan, and also to what steps are we taking to increase the trade and commerce with them? Thank you, sir.
Sir, I would like to inform the honorable member that in terms of improving ties with Pakistan, like any other neighbor, we would like to have good ties. But like with any other neighbor, we would also like to have ties free of terrorism. So this has been the position of the government. We have made it very clear that it is for the Pakistani side to show that they are changing their behavior of the past, and that if they don't, of course, there are implications for the relationship and for them. So I think the ball is very much in Pakistan's court in this regard. Regarding trade, sir, I think some of the disruptions which happened because of decisions by the government of Pakistan in 2019, and it is a matter on which they took the initiative, and we have an agnostic position on this.
Sri Asauddin Owaisi.
Sir, can the Honourable Minister enlighten the House that Nepal has printed on their currency showing Indian territories, and what steps are being taken to stop this drug entering from India from Myanmar? And we have committed $10 billion to the development of Bangladesh. What steps is this government taking to ensure that the Hindus in Bangladesh are protected and temples are protected? And what steps is this government taking to stop this dumping of fabrics from Bangladesh, which is destroying the powerloom industry in India?
Sir, regarding the point made by the honorable member on the Nepal currency, our position regarding our borders is very clear. So I think if there is any expectation in any of our neighbors that by doing something it would get India to change its position, I think they should be very clear that is not the case. I'm sure the entire House agrees with me in that regard. With regard to Myanmar, sir, because of the very disturbed conditions in Myanmar, we have had to review the open regime policy, which has historically been there. But we are sensitive to the requirement of the border communities. So it is something which we are working on. And part of the challenge is that there is very little government authority on the other side of the border. So most of what we have to do ourselves. But definitely there is today a much greater presence there to secure our borders and to monitor the movement of people across the borders. Regarding Bangladesh, we have a good history of development projects. In fact, when we speak about neighborhood first policy, almost in every one of our neighboring countries, with the exception of Pakistan and China, we have had important development projects. That is the case with Bangladesh as well. And certainly it is our hope that with the new dispensation in Bangladesh, we will settle down to a mutually beneficial and stable relationship. With regard to the treatment of minorities in Bangladesh, it has been a source of concern. There have been multiple incidents of attacks on them. We have drawn our concern to their attention. Recently, Foreign Secretary visited Dhaka. This subject came up during his meeting. And it is our expectation that in its own interest, Bangladesh would take measures so that its minorities are safe.